I'm Caleb Burns. I'm 16 years old, and I'm from Johnson City, Tennessee. My challenge is I'm dyslexic, and one of the big things that gets me actually is nines and P's. I'll randomly write P's nines and nines P's, and so I'll always have to stop, erase it, and go back. And so then also, like when I'm reading especially, I'll find myself reading words and flip them or something, and I'll be like, that word did not make any sense whatsoever. And then I'll go back and read it, and I'll be like, oh, that word was bad. Well then. And so I'll find myself going back a lot when I'm reading. Well, when I was really young, I didn't know what it was. But then when I figured it out, it was always a little awkward because I'd always have to go into a room like with a few other kids, but it was always me standing up and leaving when English class came around or when math class came around. And you could always, it's not like anyone ever said it out loud, but it was always a little awkward. Like everyone, you could tell that people were looking at you like, where's that kid going? I knew I was different, and I didn't feel as smart as everyone else because I always had to go to a different class. I wasn't good enough for the main class. So in elementary school, I wanted to be as fast as everyone, and I really just couldn't be. So I would always try to read that fast, I'd try to write that fast, but I just couldn't. It took till middle school to realize that I do just need to slow down and do it my way. Not out loud. No one ever really necessarily said, like, anything particularly mean to me or anything. There was, I'm sure, snickering and stuff like that, but it was always more a mental thing. Like I said, I felt stupid. I just didn't think I was as good as everyone else, and I could see the looks. I could almost like feel them in my back or whatever when I'm walking out the room, like, that people say that, and it's true. You know that they're looking at you thinking, why is that guy leaving every day when everyone else is staying here? And so it's always a little strange, and you feel it. You feel a little outcast-ish, not necessarily like openly outcast, but like you feel kind of different, and it's not the best feeling ever. Practically all the males on my father's side of the family have it, and I don't know about the females, but they haven't necessarily proven that it's genetic, but they've noticed that it does seem to go in the family. And so, for instance, my father seems to be a little dyslexic. He was always a bit slow on testing and stuff like that, and he sometimes will get words jumbled up a bit. And then the big person in our family who had it probably worse than me, and I've gotten help with it. So the person that had it the worst would be my grandfather and his father. When I was talking to him one time, when I first found out that I was dyslexic, I told my grandfather, I'm dyslexic, I see letters weird, and I'm a slower learner and stuff, and I'm slower at reading and writing. And then he just contemplated that for a few minutes, or maybe not minutes, but he contemplated it, and then he looked back at me and he said, son, I'm glad you told me that because I know that I wasn't stupid in school. People always just told me I'm stupid. I wasn't stupid. I was dyslexic. His teachers didn't know, and so they just would tell him he's stupid. They wouldn't give him help or anything like that. They would just say, no, you're stupid, and he ended up dropping out of high school. He didn't finish because he didn't feel like he was smart, and so he just went home to the farm and worked it. And so he wasn't offered the help I was. Even if he was worse dyslexic than me, I was given help. Even if I'm worse than him, I was given help, and that's why I was able to excel as I am, and he was just called stupid. Later in middle school, I really started to learn how to write. I learned to take my time a little more. And also they taught me cursive, which was a big thing, which since beforehand with print, for dyslexic kids, B's and D's look the same, A's and D's even get mixed up, but in cursive, it's a little more flowing, it keeps your thoughts going, and it's a lot easier to write for dyslexic people. And so with that addition, and I just learned to write a little slower, read a little slower, and learn to reread things, that really helped. So it kind of kick-started me into learning and going deeper into English. And I became a really good writer, because even though maybe I couldn't read as fast or write as fast as the other kids, I still had my thoughts. I could think what I wanted to think and learn how I learned. And so it was probably late middle school when I started getting really actually good at English. Like maybe my spelling was subpar definitely. Like, vocab quiz, if they involve spelling, I would get terrible grades. But even though that happened, my writing was still always just as high, if not higher, than some of the other kids. And that's one thing about dyslexia. It makes you a little more creative, because when you're young, you can't read and stuff. So if your parents read to you, that's good and all, but you use your imagination a lot. And that's what they've found in a lot of dyslexic kids. My mom and I, we had a real special relationship. We would go and read every night. We'd go up to my room, and when I was younger, she'd just read, and we'd read like Magic School Bus or like anything like that, just little fun books. But that also was another thing that helped kindle my love of reading, and what ended up helping me be able to get past my dyslexia a bit was my mom helping me read to me, and then at night she would just stay up. We'd read a few chapters. She'd read a few chapters to me, and I'd go to bed. It was just a little ritual we'd have. And then eventually, when I was older, and I was still a bit of a slow reader, so she would still read with me, and I would be the one that's staying up too late, and she'd end up falling asleep reading to me, and then I'd have to send her off to bed. But that was always really nice to have someone there to read to me and help me get through the homework that was so tough for me. I've gone from having to leave class to go to a special class to have a collaborative class to being put into honors English and now even AP English. And so this is really, I've come to as far as I can in high school. I write essays with everyone else, and yesterday I wrote an essay for my AP English class, and I got the second highest grade in the class. And where I got a little extra time, it let me be able to excel as much as I can, and it's really wonderful to be able to know that I've more or less overcome dyslexia. It gives a kind of confidence that you just don't understand, because as a child I thought I was stupid too, just like my grandfather, and now that I have overcome it, it has really just opened up my mind of what I can do. If I can overcome dyslexia, I can do almost anything. That is amazing. That not 100 years ago, someone would just be completely stopped in their tracks and be called dumb if they had dyslexia. But now I've been able to overcome it. I really just wish that, let him know that, all my accomplishments are his. He's the one that's passed this down, and even though he couldn't go be an engineer or something because he was just called stupid, he couldn't go further. I know that I love him, and anything that I do, I know it's for him. Don't be afraid to accept help. It may be embarrassing at first, but it's really not. It's just another step in your life that will lead you on to be able to go and live the life you want to.
Interviewing Caleb and hearing myself on the camera wasn't an easy process. I often, when I listen to myself talk, I'll second guess what I'm saying, and I've definitely worked on that throughout the years and gotten a lot better at it. But I could feel that coming back into this process, making the video. When I was thinking of the interview questions to include, I felt like I had to get them exactly right. I had a difficult time scripting the interview with him, and I felt like they needed to sound right and include everything that I needed to get from him. And through this process, I realized that I was able to build off of his story, and that the most valuable questions were the small little connector questions that really listened to his experiences and egged him on, worked with what he was saying. I felt like some of the things I've learned in theories and intro, being a counselor, is listening to the client and listening to their story and helping them, enabling them to tell their story and to create a safe space for that. So initially it was harder to do that, and in this first time that I was sitting with someone asking them these interactive questions, I felt that by the end, it was a lot easier to do that process. It's amazing how much strength Caleb had growing up. When he would refer to his time in school and talk about leaving class before English class and going to his other class, he mentioned a lot of times that was awkward, and it felt like kids were looking at him in the back of his head, and it was burning. His back was burning with their eyes. And hearing him describe that process, looking back, it was tough to hear it, and you could tell that it did leave a mark. It was part of his challenge, living with dyslexia, dealing with the usual things that kids go through in elementary school and middle school, just adolescents getting along with each other. And yet he had this additional challenge with dyslexia that was always part of his schooling. It was part of his academics. And to hear him talk about that then, and also to hear him share his experiences now and how that challenge has impacted him and helped him be the person he is today. It helped strengthen his academics. It helped teach him a good work ethic. I have to believe that his incredible support system has helped make him the person he is today, and it will stay with him forever. What really struck me about Caleb's experience was when he shared his conversation with his grandfather and talked about how difficult it was for him going through dyslexia and being undiagnosed his whole life. When Caleb talked with him, he was 7 years old, and he told me later that his grandpa was 79. And to sit with your grandfather 2 generations back and to learn that he suffered through some of the same challenges that you did, and to see that recognition happen right in front of your eyes, he really emphasized how pivotal that was with him and his experience. He said 100 years ago, people who lived with this disability, what they went through when there wasn't support. And Caleb said over and over again how his grandfather was called stupid and how he thought there was a misconnect. He just wasn't able to stay in school and do as well as the other kids, and there wasn't a reason why. There wasn't an explanation. And so looking at today and diagnosis and school counseling, and to see how much it's grown, and also how much support there is for kids with IEPs, and how still today Caleb's counselor in high school is fighting for him so he can get the help he needs and the extra time, and being realistic with dyslexia and accommodating the reality of what he needs. Over Caleb's lifetime, his experience with dyslexia is that with help, support, and incredible perseverance, it does get better. It's been really wonderful to sit down with him and hear his story.